Blindspot, episode 22, if I have to read this, If Love Were Rebel, Death Will Render. Now, unfortunately, I thought I was caught up with the show. That's why this is a full week late behind the finale. I thought for sure that the episode about Mayfair was the finale. I didn't realize that I was still a week behind, so I do apologize for that, because I thought for like the past couple days I was like, I'm totally caught up except for like one show. And then tonight I was like, alright, season finale. I was like, oh, there's an episode in between that I totally missed. So, enjoyed this one for sure leading up to the finale. Crazy ending that I did not expect. Like, the whole episode I thought was really good, and we had a really awesome episode with Mayfair, which I was honestly, like, completely shocked with the way that it ended, but she was super badass this episode. She, I mean, it was kind of like, her taking off her ankle bracelet was very similar to, like, handcuff keys. You can technically buy those. I'm pretty sure it's much harder to get keys to an ankle bracelet, but somehow she had them in, like, her super safe with her mega ring of keys. Popped it right off, put it on her dog collar, and, she took off. And she was following the trail. She had the picture of Oscar, so it's like she has to follow that trail. She goes, kind of through her mind, like, alright, I stopped this guy from hitting on this woman, and then it's like, well, did I really stop anything, or was that just a trick? And then she finds that guy, which was just crazy. Like, she just followed a great trail, and she did a lot of really good work. She got, more and more answers. She realized how she was set up, with the money, which is what led her to realizing she didn't actually save anyone. That the whole thing was really a setup. And I just like the way all of it played out, and, until the end. To be totally honest, I didn't want her to die, but the way she went through everything, and she's getting answers, and she realizes that Sophia was still getting cigarettes and stuff, so she was able to get a number, and they triangulate the area and everything, which leads to what I'm just going to call the basement, because there's really no other way to really describe it. It's not exactly a bunker. You could call it one of each, one or the other, I guess, but goes through this whole mission, and they have two really good moments, and I guess it makes sense why they had, such great moments with, her interacting with Zapata and Reed, because they were both in this really crazy situation where it's like, alright, they knew some weird stuff was going on. They both had their odd conversations with Mayfair. They had their little interactions with each other, like, nothing's happening, and then it was just like, alright, plain and simple, this is everything that happened. Reed talks about how he was, blackmailed, how they threatened Sarah and her son. Zapata mentions how she had, they don't really talk about it too much, but, the assistant district attorney was fairly simple compared to, the stuff going on with Reed. That's probably why they didn't spend too much time on that. But they kind of go all out, and it's like, this is everything that's happening. And Mayfair has a good moment with both of them, because she talks with Reed, and she, trusts him, and then Zapata calls her. And it's like, don't give up on me, like, you can still trust me and stuff. And I like that moment, because she's like, if it weren't, you're a good impact on Reed, because before he met you, he never would have done this. Like, I'd have no help, basically. So she's like, you're a good influence on him. And I thought that was a great moment, and I didn't think it was, like, her final words to both of them, like how she would never, like with Reed, was like, I'd never stop trusting you, and with Zapata, it's like, you're a good influence, and she was upset about the, DA stuff, but she knows that she can, trust the people on her team. So she had really gave her like really good final moments with both of them. I just thought they were good moments, and not like good final moments. And so we have her go through everything, and then we have the main case, which I really did not expect them to coincide by the end of the episode. But we have everything going on, and it wasn't as much about Mayfair and her case as I had expected. That's what really surprised me, because they skip 2 weeks and they do the trials and her in jail, or really in prison and everything. They kind of cut through all of that, and it's just her supposedly on house arrest. And then we have this main case with the baby, and it's like, alright, this random baby's in a bag, tattoo with the barcode, and all this other stuff. And I love the way that the case actually played out as well, because it was really surprising. It started off super simple, and it's like, okay, these people are basically signing up for this genetic experiment where it's like, alright, it would take years for this to really go through. But what we need is a bunch of different samples, which includes, I would assume, based on what the wife was explaining, like they took all sorts of samples. I would assume that means semen as well as eggs from the ladies. And what we find out is that they were basically, all these people were tricked. It's like, oh, we need this for bone marrow transplants, or probably a million other random different things as well, because they mentioned it would have to be a sibling and that it couldn't be a parent because the DNA isn't. It would be like 25% basically, or 50%. I guess makes more sense. It would be like 50% of the DNA within the bone marrow, so it would need to be a sibling. It's like, oh, they made a breakthrough and all this other stuff, and we're going to try to save our son, and then they kind of go through that whole process, getting the story and everything. It's like they did make a breakthrough. They were just basically genetically breeding babies. It was like, all right, they took all these samples, and it was just like, boom, here's a random person as a surrogate, and they were just birthing all these babies, and that was pretty much it. And that's how they were getting their cures for all these, very rich people. It's like, well, we made a breakthrough here and here, but they were just making babies kind of to just farm them off, like whatever parts they needed, blood or DNA or bone marrow, they were just kind of farming them out and getting surrogates to make these babies. And that was just really crazy. Just like the way it all planned out, it was like, man, or the way it all played out, I should say, was very surprising. And I was just kind of shocked by how all of that stuff played out, because it seemed simple. It's like, oh, this is supposed to be this guy's son, and or I don't know if they mentioned whether or not it's a boy or a girl, but this guy's baby, I think it was a girl though. I want to say it was a girl, but it's like, they think it's this guy's son or daughter. I don't know why I keep going with son. I guess because he has an actual son, I keep thinking son. But it's this guy's baby, and then that leads into like, no, I only have one child, and it's my son, and we have to figure out, we're trying to help him, and then we get to all this crazy stuff. And then we have Jane when she gets kicked out because the guy who's looking for Mayfair's replacement, which obviously, based on the ending, is going to be Weller permanently, unless he decides to make a decision. If he can make that decision to hire in his own replacement, which I doubt he'd have the ability to do that after like a day or two, so that probably won't really work. But we have Jane who's been kicked out, and so she's going on her own mission and everything, and she gets to like the baby farm, really, and she's trying to figure out how she's going to get into the place with all the babies, and she has the tattoo and everything, so it allows her to get in. And it was just crazy. We go through all this stuff. We have some pretty cool action scenes as well, like her fighting the guys in the elevator was pretty sweet. Then she fights the one guy after like tossing him out of the elevator, and they fight in the hallway. That was cool. And she fights the woman at the end and zaps her with the defibrillator. And I'm assuming she killed her, because you're not supposed to do that when you're living, like, because that's about as close to like exploding someone's heart as you can get, outside of actually blowing them up, is put a defibrillator on them and just like supercharge their body. That'll kill you. So I'm assuming she killed that woman. But it was just exciting. Like, I liked the way it all played out, and then just everything kept kind of coming together, and there was just a lot of chaos. And so things finally ended, and she's no longer with the FBI because she's been kicked out. So it's kind of like she has to go and find Oscar, because like, well, where do we go next? I can't just say I want to be a part of the team. She's been cast out, so they have to figure out what's going to happen. And then that leads to the ending when she runs into Mayfair, and once again, Oscar, he just shoots everybody. I mean, he shot Carter, he shot Mayfair. For whatever reason, he actually listened to Jane when she told him, like, get out of here, because she was super mad at him. So I was surprised he even took off, like, from considering all the stuff that he's done. I was surprised he listened to her and actually left. But I guess they know it's a secure location, and no one's going to be attracted by those gunshots in that area, because, well, that's a different area. That wasn't the same place where he killed Carter, but all those random underground places, they're always being that. Apparently, it's just empty locations. But he takes off, and then we basically just have the ending of Mayfair, which really did surprise me. I was shocked that they kind of did that ending, and Jane just has to figure out, where do I go from here, and then that's already shocking enough in itself. And then we get the actual end scene for this episode, and it just blew my mind. Like, Weller's dad is like losing in the stuff, and he's like, I think that the doctor or the nurse he mentions, like, oh, I think this is it, and he's freaking out and stuff. And it seemed like it was just because it was kind of close to the end, and so he knew that, and he didn't want to bother taking the meds or whatever, and so he was kind of really messed up. I was like, no, he's not super messed up. He was scared that he was about to die, but which he does. He actually dies at the end, but he knows he has to tell the truth. And so this whole time, with Jane, whoever, I guess, he knew that that wasn't her because he wasn't committing suicide. He actually did kill her. And they still kind of don't explain it. Like, it was still kind of super vague. It was like, she's under the fort. And I was like, I don't even understand. Like, there's a whole story. Because the whole thing was like, oh, he took her from the home and she died. And it's like, he's just like, she's under the fort. And I'm like, I don't know what is happening right now. And so he knew that she was dead the whole time. And it's just crazy. Like, I don't know. And it kind of goes back to, I think, the second or third episode where it was like, the DNA match was right, but I think it was like her dental work was off or something. It was something, one or the other, but I think it was like the DNA was a match, but the molars were not. Which, I mean, like, they'd have, like replacement teeth and weird stuff like that. So it was kind of iffy, but they just went with the Jane thing, which seemed to make sense. She had, even the flashbacks they showed us, where it was like, oh, she was, going to the funeral and stuff. Like, that was the first thing I thought of, was like, if that was never actually Jane, why was she at the funeral? Like, was this some random girl that was actually kidnapped because she was actually taken from wherever she used to live to the place where all those children were? So did they, like, wipe her memory back then, or did they just let her grow up? I mean, I would assume at some point, because she wasn't so young, she wouldn't know her own name. She was like, I think it was supposed to be like she was around 6 or 7 or something like that. So it's like, did they lie to her, or what did they do to make her believe that she was Jane? And she doesn't even know. Especially at this point, she has no idea whatsoever. But before that, did she not know? Because it's like, did they wipe her memory back then? Was this I mean, I would assume the organization was set up long before her, but it was just crazy. It just brought up a bunch of questions. Like, did she know she wasn't Jane? But they had the flashbacks to kind of show us, like, she went to that funeral and everything. Which, if she knew she wasn't Jane, there'd be no reason to even do that. Because in the flashbacks, it was just her and Oscar talking. Like, it sucks to see her so sad, but this is the way the mission has to be, and it sucks to see Weller so upset even after all this time. But it's just the way the mission has to play out. And eventually, they just told her, like, this is who you are. And maybe because she was so young, she believed it. And it was, just raising a kid in such a crazy situation. Like, this is who you are. And this is the crazy super government mission thing we're doing to try to, like, save the government. Even though we won't just, give all the answers. So, it's a huge question now. Like, did she know beforehand? Did she not know beforehand? What the heck is going on? Oscar's talking about wiping her memory and stuff. So I'm excited to watch the finale for sure. Even though it's like 3:27 in the morning, my sleep schedule is so off. It won't make a difference. So I'm gonna watch it after I finish this review. But I really enjoyed this episode. Very surprising. Like, just the last two scenes, very surprising. I don't want to say happy. I always hate saying, like, I loved it because, when someone gets killed off. So I hate saying, like, I loved the ending. But it was a great ending. And it has me really excited to check out the finale. But, of course, even though I'm unfortunately a week behind, I was so sure with this one. I was like, I finally caught up. So I just feel really crappy that I didn't, because I could have had this up, before the finale. Because I always like to make sure I get the finale on time. But definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, aside from just asking you guys your predictions and expectations for the finale based on this episode, I of course have to ask how you guys feel about losing Mayfair in this one, because for me it was really surprising. And personally, I would have just loved to have seen where it went, because I thought she was going to succeed, and I'm like, it's still some crazy super organization. We still have no idea what's going on. So even if she found Sophia and all this other stuff, there were still a million other elements to it. And of course, all the evidence against her, there was just still a ton of stuff. But all she really needed was to prove that Sophia was alive, and that's why, she gave the money and everything. That's like the big thing. And I was kind of looking forward to that. I was like, man, she's finding all these people. She's, getting information and just going through and finding everything she needs. And I was kind of looking forward to it. I was like, man, how's this going to play out? It won't be perfect, and I knew that. But I was like, somehow she's going to make this work. But it'll still continue on to be like this crazy mystery. And unfortunately, she didn't even, in the end, it didn't actually work. And I thought for sure, for a second, I thought Sophia was the one that actually shot her, which would have been really crazy. That would have just been like insanely, like, poetic, like just a crazy poetic sense. But definitely a great episode leading into the finale. Looking forward to the finale of this one. I think they've had a crazy good first season. That's why we got 22 episodes, because the show got so insanely popular. They expanded it to like a full first season, which is normally 22 episodes. So the show's already insanely popular. I can imagine how good things are going to be in season 2 after this finale. But like I said, definitely want to know what you guys, well, if you, whether you've seen it or not, what your expectations were or are for the finale, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general, and of course what you guys thought about losing Mayfair. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.